Have you ever imagined that your human existence today, with all its intellect and civilization, was merely a shaky game in the claws of monsters? 2 million years ago, our ancestors were tiny, naked creatures, trembling in fear at every shadow that moved in the forest, awaiting death at every moment like a miserable prey. But how did this weak entity, besieged by annihilation, become the master of this vast universe? The secret of survival was not in the muscles, but in a single spark that changed our destiny forever. Welcome to my small world. I am Dodi, and I welcome you with all my heart to the Dodi Drama family. Join our big family now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and let us take our together in this magical world. The Paleolithic Age. How did our earliest ancestors live? Tonight, we will talk about the longest and most significant era in the entire human journey, the dawn of humanity. It is an era that lasted for nearly 2 million years, witnessed all beginnings, and from which everything started. It is the story of the Paleolithic Age, specifically the Paleolithic, not the Mesolithic or Neolithic, for indeed there are Middle and New Stone Ages as well. First, I will explain to you how the earliest humans invented a primitive stone tool that flipped their entire life's balance. Second, you will learn how man was guided to discover fire and firmly grasped it for the first time in recorded history. Third, I will tell you the details of the Great Exodus, the greatest adventure in the history of the human race. Fourth, you will discover the tale of the encounter between Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals within the frozen continent of Europe, how they coexisted, interbred, and clashed until the Neanderthals disappeared from existence, and we remained alone. Fifth, I will show you the great cultural revolution when humans transformed into creative artists for the first time. In conclusion, I will take you on a full-day tour inside the daily life of a Stone Age clan. You will spend your time with them from dawn till dusk, hunting, cooking, playing, rituals, and sleep. You will witness the harshness of their lives, yet you will see how they were filled with affection, solidarity, and joy despite the challenges. Lessons from the deep past. 2 million years ago, man was nothing more than a gentle, naked creature roaming on 2 feet amidst the vast and dangerous lands of Africa. He was surrounded by ferocious beasts hundreds of times stronger than him, with no homes to shelter him, no fires to provide warmth, and no F-35 fighter jets to protect him. So, how did the condition of this poor creature change from merely a hunted prey, terrified by his own shadow, to become the master of this vast world? This narrative will teach you profound lessons that would never have crossed your mind. Lessons on creativity and development, when humans challenge the impossible and refuse to surrender to massive obstacles. Lessons on solidarity and joint effort, during times when living is fierce and difficult, leaving no room for the weak. Lessons on curiosity and boldness, when one decides to explore the depths of what lies behind the unknown horizon. Before we begin our discussion, if you like what we offer on this channel, even just a little bit, do not forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like, share the video with your friends, and share with me in the comments the name of the country you are watching me from, and what time it is for you now. If you are listening to us in these moments during the early morning, stand up and prepare yourself a cup of hot coffee, and woe to you if you add sugar and spoil its taste. But if you are watching me at night just before you sleep, do not get carried away and get up to make coffee. Instead, relax, close your eyes, and let's sleep. Let us start the journey. The beginning of the journey, East African environment, approximately 2.3 million years ago. Specifically in the spot we know today as Kenya in East Africa. The sun rose over vast green valleys that stretched to embrace the horizon without end. Giant acacia trees were scattered about, and massive creatures were eating their grass in absolute serenity. Huge elephants, tall giraffes, and countless herds of zebras and graceful gazelles. However, that peaceful and charming paradise was, in reality, fraught with dangers and death in all its corners. Hungry lions were hiding among the tall grass, waiting for the opportune moment to pounce on their victims. And cunning hyenas were roaming in huge packs in search of any weak prey to tear into pieces. The story of Kero, the handyman and the invention of the first tool. Amidst this harsh environment, saturated with ferocity and blood, lived a tiny and weak creature called Homo habilis, a term that in ancient Latin means the handyman. Homo habilis was short, no more than 130 centimeters tall, with a thin and frail body covered in light hair and features that leaned more towards apes than to the humans of our day. His brain size was relatively small, though slightly larger than the brains of the apes that shared the same living space. On the morning of an ordinary day from that ancient era, an incident occurred that would change the course of humanity forever. A young man belonging to the Homo habilis clan, let's call him Kero, was sitting near the edge of a small river. He was about 20 years old, his body exhausted from the scarcity of food, and his eyes watching in strict caution in all directions. In front of him rested a large, black volcanic rock, and in his right hand, he held another smaller and heavier stone. He was starving. For 2 days, he had tasted nothing but some dry fruits and bitter-tasting roots. The previous day, he had seen a giant lion devouring a wild donkey hundreds of meters from his location, and after the lion's belly was full and it left, leaving only scraps, the vultures and hyenas arrived to devour what remained. As soon as all the predators left, Kero and his tribe members approached the site with extreme caution. They found huge skeletons that still retained some pieces of meat. But the obstacle lay in their inability to break them with their bare hands. The bones were extremely hard. The meat was clinging to the joints, and human teeth at the time did not have the power to tear it. Deep inside those bones hid a very precious treasure, the fatty marrow, full of calories and energy. But how to reach it? Here, the idea began to crystallize inside young Kero's mind with extreme slowness. He recalled a previous scene of a stone falling on another stone and shattering into pointed parts. So what prevents him from trying to create the same thing himself? What if he struck one rock with another to create a sharp blade to tear the meat? He gripped the small stone with his hand and raised it, then brought it down with all his might onto the large rock in front of him. A violent sound rang out. Nothing. He repeated the attempt, another blow, and a small shard scattered. A third blow, then a fourth and a fifth, until pain hit his palms from the sheer effort. And suddenly, after suffering, the amazing thing happened. A large stone piece split and fell to the dirt with a very sharp edge resembling a blade. Kero picked it up carefully and contemplated it with his bulging eyes that overflowed with astonishment and joy. A tool was born for the first time in the records of history. A living creature was making a tool with its own hands intentionally and with complete prior planning. Kero dashed quickly toward the remains of the wild donkey, while his tribe members watched him with curiosity and wonder. He applied the pointed stone to the meat and pressed hard, and the meat tore with amazing ease as if it were being cut with a modern steel pocket knife. Piece by piece, Kero began to separate the meat from the bones with increasing speed and skill. After that, he took a large bone and smashed it with a second stone until it shattered, and the fatty marrow emerged from inside. Food, energy, life. The tribe members gathered around him quickly and started eating with him with voracity and greed, and slowly they began to imitate him. They struck stones together, trying to invent equipment similar to what he had made. Today's scientists call these tools Oldowan tools, named after Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, where they were first discovered. The cycle of evolution, food and brain. It is true that they were very primitive tools, but they represented an actual uprising. This naive piece of rock changed the life of early man radically. He was now able to cut meat easily, smash bones, and reach the valuable marrow. He began reaping more proteins, more fats, and energy that exceeded any previous stage. And the more protein he fed on, the larger his brain grew, and his intelligence and ability to think and innovate increased. It is a connected circle. A developed tool brings better food. Food builds a larger brain, and the brain invents a more advanced tool. The benefit of the tool was not limited to just bringing food. Rather, man began to employ it in cutting branches and preparing long sticks to defend himself. He used it to dig the dirt and extract tubers and roots suitable for eating from deep underground, and he adapted it to manufacture other, more complex and useful equipment in his daily life. As thousands of years passed, the quality of the tools improved very slowly to become more precise and accurate, transforming from just a broken rock into a carefully shaped stone with cutting edges from all sides, and from one simple tool to a diverse set including knives, scrapers, drills, and hammers. Man was no longer that vulnerable, helpless entity in the face of the brutality of fierce nature. Rather, he became an intelligent creature who harnesses his mind to solve problems and create tools that ensure his survival. The tool was the first step, but it was not enough. There was something else waiting for him, something more dangerous, important, and powerful than any tool in the world, something that would change the destiny of humanity forever. Part 2. Fire. Taming the Raging Beast. That night etched in memory. Hundreds of thousands of years had passed since Caro invented his first stone tool. The human race had developed, and a new, updated species emerged that surpassed its predecessor in awe and power. Known as Homo erectus, or the upright man, he carried this name because he walked with a straight, upright posture on strong, elongated legs. His height was nearly 170 centimeters, with a more solid build, and a brain that far exceeded the brain size of Homo habilis. His equipment also upgraded to become more complex and developed, so hand axes with beautiful designs and symmetrical edges appeared. Despite all this advancement, man continued to moan under the weight of a very difficult dilemma: the frost. In that era, the weather fluctuated constantly between warm periods and other intensely harsh glacial ones. With the onset of cold seasons, temperatures would drop to terrifying levels, even in the heart of equatorial Africa. The nights were deadly, biting cold that gnawed at the bones, and pitch, black darkness teeming with terrifying echoes. The roar of lions split the silence of the night, and the laughter of hyenas echoed with a frightening and insane tone. The human would curl up inside a cave or under a tree, shivering from the cold and terror all night long, awaiting the rising of the morning sun with longing to feel reassurance and warmth again. Of course, fire had been present in nature since the beginning. Lightning strikes would hit dry trees and ignite flames that would sweep through forests with frightening speed, and volcanoes would erupt to throw raging lava that wiped out everything in its path. Therefore, man feared fire with extreme panic and fled from it as all other animals did. But something, and with extreme slowness, began to change inside the mind of early man. He noticed that predatory beasts also feared fire and fled away from it. He watched how the charred ground after a forest fire retained its warmth for long hours. He discovered that pieces of meat lightly licked by fire tasted better and were easier to chew. Over tens of thousands of years, and with cautious graduation, man began to approach the flame. He began to collect burning branches from natural fires and carry them carefully to his place of residence, placing them on the ground and striving to keep them burning by adding dry branches. However, controlling fire was extremely difficult. Sometimes it would go out suddenly, and sometimes it would spread to burn everything green and dry. Until that night arrived, a harshly cold winter night about 1 million years ago somewhere in East Africa. A small tribe of Homo erectus consisting of about 20 individuals gathered inside a narrow cave. The frost was deadly outside, and the fierce winds were blowing everything in the midst of complete darkness. One of them, a middle-aged man we will call Zorro, was struggling to light a fire relying on old firewood, but the branches were wet and the fire refused to ignite no matter how he tried again and again. The children were wailing from the cold, and the women were holding them in an attempt to provide warmth with their bodies. Frustration and intense anger crept into Zorro's heart due to his continuous failure. In a moment of despair and fury, he gripped a stone and brought it down with force onto another stone. A tiny spark flew. Zorro froze in his place. What happened? He struck the stone again, and a second, stronger spark shone. His heartbeat accelerated, and his eyes widened in surprise and enthusiasm. Is it possible? He placed a handful of dry grass in front of him and began striking the two stones with violence and speed. A spark, then another, and suddenly, fire. A small flame began to devour the dry grass with amazing speed. Zorro let out a cry of joy and victory, and the tribe members rushed toward him. He began adding small dry twigs over the flame, then followed it with larger branches until it turned into a great, blazing fire. Warmth. Everyone gathered, moving closer to the fire, stretching their hands toward it, and they felt the wonderful warmth flowing through their bodies. More importantly, the fire lit up the dark cave and banished the terrifying darkness outside. That night, not a single member of the clan slept. Instead, they remained fixed around the hearth, watching the dancing flame with eyes full of awe and fascination. It was the most beautiful night they had ever lived. Since that moment, man was never the same. He became a creature that possessed the power to create fire whenever he wished. By striking stone against stone, or by rubbing one stick against another. How did fire change everything? Warmth. Man was able to live inside cold regions and atop high mountains. Safety. Predatory animals are terrified of fire and do not dare to enter its perimeter. Light. Fire dispels the terrifying darkness of the night and instills a sense of reassurance. Food. Cooking this flipped the balance radically. Cooked meat is easier to chew, tastier, and safer than raw meat. It also eliminates fatal germs and parasites. And most importantly, cooked food provides the body with energy that exceeds raw food by stages. Scientists believe that cooking is the fundamental reason for the massive increase in the size of the human brain. The mind needs tremendous energy to perform its functions, about 20% of the body's total energy. And cooked food provides this energy in a better and faster way. The more man ate cooked food, the larger his brain grew, and he became smarter and more capable of complex thinking. With the passage of time, fire became the center of the social life of early humans. At night, they would gather around it to eat, talk, and tell stories. The children would listen to the elders to learn hunting techniques, the secrets of plants, and the nature of beasts, and the elders would pass on knowledge and experience from one generation to the next in the presence of the warm fire. Fire was not just a tool for survival, it was a symbol of civilization, development, and human intelligence. It was the thing that separated man from other animals decisively, and finally, but controlling fire opened a new door for man. A door he could not have imagined before. With the availability of warmth, safety, and food, he began to think about something entirely new. What lies outside the borders of Africa? What exists beyond the distant horizon that no one has reached before? And here began the greatest adventure in the entire history of humanity, the Great Migration. Part 3. The Great Migration, a journey toward the unknown. What drives man to leave his homeland? Nearly 2 million years ago, all humans lived exclusively on the continent of Africa. It is the cradle of humanity, the spot that witnessed the birth of the first human on the surface of the planet. where the weather is warm and the soil is fertile, teeming with animals and plants suitable for eating. However, something began to change slowly in those ancient eras. The climate became drier, and the tangled jungles turned into open savanna plains. Food resources shrank, and the ferocity of competition between clans intensified to reach unprecedented levels. Concurrently, population numbers were steadily increasing, which meant more hungry mouths requiring food. Some tribes began to move north, following the tracks of migrating animal herds in pursuit of pasture and water. Step after step, and generation after generation, groups began to leak out of the borders of Africa without their realization. It was not born from a studied decision or prior planning. It was just a relentless pursuit of food, drink, and a more suitable environment for life. However, this innate pursuit led them toward lands no human foot had ever stepped on. The vanguard of these migrants were from the Homo erectus, upright man, species, who enjoyed strength and cunning. They crossed the northeast of Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, then settled in the Levant, and from that point, their paths diverged. One group headed west toward Europe. Another group headed east toward the continent of Asia. The march was exhausting, extremely long, and fraught with dangers and deadly obstacles. They saw virgin lands they were ignorant of, strange plants, creatures they had not known before, and a completely different climate, biting cold in winter and scorching heat in summer. They also faced great rivers that required crossing, high mountains that required climbing, and barren deserts that had to be traversed. Many perished during the journey either due to hunger, cold, epidemics, or predator attacks, but those who were destined to survive were the strongest, smartest, and greatest in their ability to adapt to those overwhelming conditions. Emergence of new lineages. Over hundreds of thousands of years, human expansion spread very slowly across various regions. In Asia, they reached China and Indonesia, reaching the remote island of Java. In Europe, they made Spain, France, Germany, and the Balkans their home. Each group began to adapt to its new environment in a way that differed from the other. In intensely cold environments, their bodies acquired a shorter and more solid build to retain body heat more effectively. While in hot regions, their bodies maintained their height and thinness to facilitate the rapid cooling process. With the passage of very long periods of time, new types of humans emerged in separate places. In Europe and Western Asia, a very tough species emerged known as Neanderthal. In East Asia, Homo erectus survived, continuing its life and slow development for more than 1 million years. In other places, species surrounded by mystery appeared, such as Denisovans, about which we have only a small amount of information. But inside the African continent itself, other events were unfolding, something that would flip all the balances. A completely new human lineage was forming, a species characterized by keen intelligence and creativity exceeding any species that preceded it, a type that would spread to every spot on the face of this earth to dominate everyone. They are us, Homo sapiens, the wise man. Part 4. The emergence of Homo sapiens and the collision with the Neanderthals. The revolution of the mind and abstract concepts. Nearly 300,000 years ago, somewhere in East Africa, a new human species emerged, Homo sapiens, or the wise man, that is, those of us who sit now and listen to this story. In terms of physical structure, there was no fundamental difference from previous lineages. Perhaps he was slightly taller and thinner, but his brain was completely different, larger, more complex, and equipped with the ability to think in ways that were not previously available. Homo sapiens could contemplate in a symbolic and abstract way, imagining things not present before him. He now possessed the ability to plan for a distant future and summon memories of the past in their smallest details. He began communicating with his fellow species in a complex language rich in vocabulary and expressions. But the greatest transformation lies in his ability to imagine things his eyes do not see and to believe in them, such as gods, spirits, superstitions, and myths. This faculty, that is, the belief in abstract concepts, gave Homo sapiens the advantage of solidarity in very large numbers. The clan was no longer just a small family whose members were familiar with each other, but it turned into a huge gathering that worshipped the same gods, believed the same stories, and submitted to the same customs and laws. This massive cohesion armed Homo sapiens with a power no other species could challenge. For tens of thousands of years, Homo sapiens lived exclusively within Africa, witnessing development and growth in his mental capacities. But about 70,000 years ago, a decisive event occurred, a cognitive revolution represented by a giant leap in the cultural and mental capacities of this human. Scientists are not certain about what exactly happened. It may have been the result of a slight genetic mutation in the structure of the brain, but the consequences were clear. Man suddenly became more creative and innovative than any era that passed. Tools witnessed more diversity and precision. Needles made of bone appeared for sewing clothes. Long, light spears with pointed stone heads that could be thrown from long distances. Fish hooks and nets woven from plant fibers were made. The emergence of the art of decoration and symbol making. Necklaces made of colored beads and shells surrounded necks, and inscriptions decorated rocks and cave walls to tell prominent events and stories. The dead began to be buried according to specific rituals, where food and tools were placed with them to help them in the afterlife. These aspects together point to one truth. Homo sapiens had realized a profound artistic and spiritual sentiment, the collision with the Neanderthals in Europe. At that exact time, a group of wise humans decided to leave Africa again. However, this journey was not a slow migration. Spanning thousands of years like the previous one, rather it was a fast, coordinated movement born of certainty. Huge caravans traveled together along a route drawn across the Red Sea from East Africa toward the Arabian Peninsula using primitive boats. Then they expanded at an amazing pace eastward toward China and India, and southward toward Australia and Indonesia. Within a period that did not exceed tens of thousands of years, they reached the Far East and crossed the sea toward Australia. At the same time, other groups headed north and west toward Turkey and the Levant, and from there, they entered the European continent about 45,000 years ago. But Europe was not empty. It was inhabited by original inhabitants who had settled it for hundreds of thousands of years before the arrival of Homo sapiens. They were the Neanderthal species. The Neanderthal was an impressive creature by all standards. He was slightly shorter than Homo sapiens, but he surpassed him in physical strength by stages. He had stocky muscles and thick, sturdy bones. His brain was extremely large. In fact, it was slightly larger than the brain of Homo sapiens. He stayed in Western Asia and Europe for more than 300,000 years, where he fully adapted to the biting frost. He was a seasoned and brave hunter who would fight bison, giant bears, and mammoths with unmatched courage, using heavy spears in battles involving direct confrontation. He was known for his care for the sick and wounded among his clan members. And he would bury his dead, sometimes accompanying them with flowers and tools. He used pigments and ornaments as colored shells and bird feathers were discovered at their sites. In short, the Neanderthal was not that naive monster as previous perceptions promoted. He was a wise and tough human who achieved success and prosperity. But with the arrival of Homo sapiens to the European continent, strange and tragic events occurred. Initially, communication was somewhat peaceful. The two tribes, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, coexisted within the same geographic range for thousands of years. They exchanged technologies and knowledge, and even intermarried, producing shared offspring. Today, scientists understand through DNA examination that the majority of modern humans carry Neanderthal genes, ranging from 1% to 4% of the modern human genome. Despite this limited proximity and integration, a fierce struggle for nature's resources erupted. Resources such as water, food, caves, and hunting grounds were scarce. Here, the decisive superiority of Homo sapiens manifested, the power of cooperation. While Neanderthals lived in small groups of no more than 20 or 30 individuals, Homo sapiens were capable of uniting in groups of hundreds, or perhaps thousands, thanks to the complexity of their language and their ability to believe in abstract concepts and collective narratives. This broad alliance granted them more efficient dominance over resources, and over thousands of years, the Neanderthals began to lose their advantage. Homo sapiens tightened their grip on food, abundant lands, forcing the Neanderthals to retreat into barren mountainous regions. Disease, frost, and famine conspired to drain the strength of their tribes one after another, until the last Neanderthal vanished from the face of the earth approximately 40,000 years ago. No one knows for sure how the last of them took their final breath. Perhaps they perished from hunger, disease, or cold. Or perhaps they fell at the hands of a Homo sapiens in a dispute over sustenance. Or perhaps they died alone in a corner of a dark, cold cave, without anyone from their own kind to bury their body. It is a true tragedy. An entire human species lived for hundreds of thousands of years, then went extinct forever. Yet, their genetic footprint remains alive in our veins as a witness to that ancient encounter between two human lineages. And now, after Homo sapiens mastered the scene and became the only human species on planet Earth, they began to practice something no other creature had ever done before. They began to create. Part 5. The Cultural Uprising. When art and spirit were born, approximately 40,000 years ago in Europe, a revolution broke out the likes of which the world had never seen. An uprising in the fields of creativity, art, and profound spiritual expression of the human psyche. Suddenly, that Homo sapiens who was only preoccupied with the worries of hunting and the struggle for survival began to direct their thinking toward other goals: meaning, symbols, art, and beauty. The evolution of artistic and military tools. Their equipment evolved to become complex and precise to an astonishing degree. Razor, sharp blades, and long, thin flakes used for various purposes. Extremely precise needles made of ivory and bone for tailoring tight leather clothing to protect against the frost. They developed light spears equipped with stone tips glued with natural adhesives, representing the first composite and complex tool. They invented spear throwers, a wooden tool that doubled the momentum of the throw, making the hunting process safer and easier. Venus figurines. Most important of all is the artistic creativity that has no equal throughout history. Small figurines carved from fired clay, stone, and ivory appeared, most notably the Venus figurines, which depict women with a full, figured physique and exaggerated details. Hundreds of these pieces have been found in various sites extending from Russia to France. Some are so small that they fit in the palm of a hand, while others are palm-sized. Scientists are not certain what these figurines symbolized for the first humans. They may have been indications of motherhood and fertility, as the importance of pregnant women was paramount for the survival of the clan. Or perhaps they were amulets to ward off disease and evil, or to bring luck and prosperity. Or perhaps it was simply a captivating work of art crafted by a skilled sculptor in a desire to translate the hidden feelings within them. Cave art. Undoubtedly, the greatest manifestation of creativity in the Paleolithic era is cave art, those engravings and paintings decorating the dark walls of caves in the depths of mountains. The first to discover these masterpieces was in the 19th century in Spain in a cave called Altamira, which is filled with colorful murals of giant creatures like deer, horses, and bison, drawn with breathtaking skill and splendor. Red, yellow, and black pigments were made from burnt charcoal and colored earths. At first, scientists doubted the age of these engravings, thinking them modern forgeries, for how could a primitive human create with this level of magnificence? But with successive discoveries of decorated caves in Spain and France, the doubts dissipated, and it was confirmed that this ancient human was a creative artist. The Lascaux cave in the south of France is considered one of the most famous in this field. It was discovered in 1940 by 4 boys who were playing in the woods and entered the cave by chance to find themselves in a vast hall whose walls were covered with intricate drawings of horses, bulls, and animals, some of which are strange and have been extinct for long ages. The colors are still bright and pulsating with life, as if they had been applied by the brush just yesterday and not 17,000 years ago. The ancient artist harnessed all possible techniques to breathe life and realism into his paintings. He utilized natural protrusions in the rock to give the animals 3-dimensional depth. He drew some with 8 legs to suggest speed and movement. He played with the distribution of light and shadow so that the shapes would appear as if they were breathing, a living entity. When he carried a torch of burning fat and walked inside the dark corridors, the undulating shadows on the walls made the viewer feel as if the animals were running and jumping, as if it were prehistoric cinema. But why did humans take on the trouble of drawing in those dark depths? Scientists have various hypotheses without a definitive answer. Perhaps they were part of magical rituals that anticipated the hunting of the animal by drawing it to ensure success in the journey. Or perhaps they were religious rites in which the cave turned into a sacred sanctuary to connect with the gods and spirits. They could also be an illustrative means to educate the youth about the secrets of hunting and the nature of the prey. Or, quite simply, it is a response to an innate tendency within humans to express themselves through art. Alongside the images of animals, mysterious engravings were found. Lines, dots, and geometric shapes that some experts believe are linguistic codes representing humanity's first efforts toward writing, while others believe they are astronomical maps tracking the positions of the stars, making them the oldest recorded space observation. There are also the imprints of human hands scattered on the rocks, where the artist would place their palm on the wall and blow pigments around it to leave a white gap in the shape of the hand. In an implicit message saying, "I passed through here, I exist, do not forget me." A message sent by a human 30,000 years ago to shake hands with our eyes today. Among the prominent landmarks is the Chauvet Cave in France, discovered in 1994, which contains very ancient drawings over 30,000 years old, the oldest cave engravings discovered so far. What is amazing is that these ancient works were executed with superior skill and high craftsmanship, not just primitive scribbles, but fine art almost attributed to a professional artist. This proves that art did not progress from simple stages toward complexity, but exploded suddenly at a sophisticated level from the very first spark. Something fundamental changed in the human mind, unleashing the reins of creativity without limits. Development of spiritual practices. In parallel with the artistic development, a noticeable progress occurred in spiritual and ritual practices. Funeral rites for the dead became deeper and more complex. Graves were decorated with beads, shells, and flowers, and the deceased was buried accompanied by their prized equipment and a supply of food and drink to help them on their journey to the other world. Some graves contain massive quantities of beads, reaching tens of thousands of tiny pieces, the manufacture of which required thousands of hours of painstaking and precise effort. This reflects the high status of the deceased, such as being a clan elder, a seer, or a skilled hunter, where the clan would incur this enormous effort to honor them after their passing. This celebration of the dead demonstrates a profound transformation. The human was no longer just a creature living to eat, reproduce, and then vanish. They became an entity with a conscience, realizing the reality of death, anticipating a life after it. An entity that believes in unseen powers and gods, mourns its dead, sheds tears for them. An entity that invents art and beauty, not just for the purpose of survival, but to enjoy and express inner feelings. In short, they became human in every complete sense of the word. And yet, all this spiritual and artistic momentum was crystallizing within a living framework of extreme fierceness and hardship, a life full of constant danger and toil. So, what did the daily life of that human look like in the Paleolithic era? How did they spend their day from dawn until dusk? And how did they manage their hunting and food and live with their family and tribe? Let us now dive into the corridors of that daily life to see how our ancestors spent their days thousands of years ago. Part 6. Daily Life. A day in the life of the first human. Imagine with me for a moment that you are living 15,000 years ago in a spot in southern France. You are an individual from a small clan belonging to Homo sapiens, including about 40 people living together. Your tribe takes a spacious cave as a home, located on a mountainside overlooking a vast green valley. The interior of the cave is deep and dark, but its front is exposed, allowing sunlight to penetrate it. The night before, the cold was harsh. Winter is still showing its teeth despite the proximity of the spring season. But the hearth remained burning all night, radiating warmth and keeping hungry predators away. One person is assigned to stay up at night to guard the fire and feed it with firewood. Now, dawn has begun to breathe, and the dim gray light has crept slowly to the mouth of the cave. The birds have begun to chirp outside, and the sound of a small stream flowing in the valley below the mountain can be heard. The first to shake the sleep from their eyelids was Caro, a young hunter of 20 years, who opens his eyes slowly and lets his gaze wander around the place. Families are immersed in their slumber on the floor, covered in animal furs. The little ones huddle in the warmth of their mothers, while the strong men sleep near the entrance to secure it. The fire did not go out, but it has dimmed. Caro rises to throw some dry sticks on it, and the flame flares up again. And the warmth spreads slowly through the cold cave. The young man stretches his hands toward the fire to get warm, then wipes his face with cold water from a leather pouch. He contemplates his long spear made of sturdy wood, crowned with a sharp stone tip. The day is not ordinary. The clan has resolved to hunt a mammoth, that mighty elephant covered in thick fur, representing the great prize for any hunter. One mammoth is enough to feed the entire tribe for several weeks. Its meat is saturated with protein, and its fat provides bodies with tremendous energy to resist the cold, while its bones and tusks are used to make equipment, weapons, and supports, and its thick skin is perfect for sewing sturdy clothing and blankets. However, trapping a mammoth is fraught with dangers and requires tight planning. Its weight reaches 6 tons, meaning it exceeds the human by hundreds of times, and its curved tusks are capable of taking lives with a single blow. And if it is enraged, death is certain. Therefore, the matter requires the combined efforts of all men capable of confrontation. Gradually, the individuals shake off their slumber. The women begin to prepare simple morning sustenance. Leftovers of dried meat from the previous day with some roots and fruits that we recently harvested from the nearby forest. The children play by the hearth under the watchful eyes of their mothers. 15 hunters gather at the mouth of the cave. Their leader, Toro, a man in his 40s, begins to lay out the action plan. Yesterday, the scouts spotted a small herd of mammoths grazing 2 hours' walk away. The herd consists of a giant male, 3 females, and a young calf. The calf is the sought-after target. It is easier to hunt and less lethal than the adults, but the dilemma lies in the mother's desperation to protect her young and the possibility of the entire herd attacking. Therefore, the trick requires isolating the young one with cunning. A portion of the men will lie in wait behind rock masses on the edge of the valley, while the other portion confronts the herd, making a great commotion and noise to scare them, and when the herd flees, they will push them toward a narrow passage between the rocks, and there the hidden group will jump to isolate the targeted calf. After that, spears will rain down on it from various directions until it falls quickly due to blood loss. A great risk, but it is the only way to take down a creature of this size. Every fighter checks their equipment carefully: spears, stone knives, and hand axes. Some carry torches made of branches saturated with animal fat, for fire scares the mammoth. The women provide each man with a piece of meat to sustain him during his march. The children look at their fathers with eyes that blend pride with anxiety. As soon as the sun rises a little in the sky, the men set out in complete silence and caution. After 2 hours of relentless walking through tangled jungles and narrow valleys, the hunters move forward in absolute silence, for any whisper could alert the prey. They communicate by gestures only, their eyes scouring the dirt to track a footprint, droppings, or a broken branch. Every sign is a compass guiding them to the target. Finally, they reach the edge of the valley and steal a look from the top of the hill. The herd is there in the green plain, grazing in peace. The giant male looks majestic and frightening, while the young one, their target, plays beside his mother. Toro gives the signal, and the team splits into 2 parts according to the plan. Half of them descend secretly toward the eastern rocky intersection to lie in wait, while the other half stays under the leadership of Toro on the hill, ready for the decisive moment. Heartbeats accelerate, and adrenaline surges in the veins. Suddenly, the signal. The men on the hill begin shouting loudly and hitting the rocks with clubs, a terrifying noise that tears through the silence of the valley. The giant male rears up and lets out a warning roar. The herd panics and rushes away from the source of the commotion. The hunters wave the flaming torches to guide the path of the run toward the only exit that seems safe, the narrow, rocky passage. And as soon as the herd entered the ambush, the hidden group appeared like ghosts from behind the rocks, screaming and waving the fire. The male is gripped by panic and turns back looking for a reverse escape, but the disturbed calf separates from its mother and strays in a different direction. This is the moment. Caro rushes with 3 others toward the young one with all their might. Spears launch into the air, some miss, and some sink into the flank of the animal, which screams in pain and struggles to escape. But the wounds weigh down its steps. Another spear lodges in the neck, and a third in the hind leg. The calf stumbles and is about to fall, but the survival instinct drives it to continue. The hunters show no mercy, showering it with more tips and sharp rocks. Finally, after a bitter chase, the mammoth falls on its knees, drenched in its blood, which stained the dirt. Caro approaches with extreme caution, raises his last spear, and strikes with all his might into the throat of the prey. A faint rattle, then complete stillness. It was over. Shouts of victory rise. A precious catch, and no loss of life. The mission is not over yet, for the process of skinning the mammoth consumes hours of grueling labor. Flint knives work to separate the skin from the meat, which is cut into large pieces that are easy to carry. Bones are smashed to extract the precious marrow, and the entrails are collected. The liver and heart are a gushing nutritional prize, while the tusks are extracted with precision to be used later. The work continues until sunset. The journey back is harder, as the loads break backs, but hearts fill with pride as they approach the cave. At dusk, the women's ululations and the shouts of the children running to receive them rise. The men set down the spoils, and Toro divides them fairly among the families, while giving the best parts to the hunters. Caro, the one with the final blow, gets the heart, a great honor. The women immediately begin cooking the roast on the hearth so that the cave fills with the delicious smell of roast meat. A portion is eaten, another is hung to be dried in the air, and the rest is buried in cold underground pits to keep for weeks. As darkness falls, everyone gathers around the blazing fire. Devouring food with greed, happiness covers faces, and Caro stands up to reenact the scene of the stab amidst the applause of his companions. An elder takes out a hollow bone and blows into it to produce melodious tunes. And another beats on a skin stretched over a skull so that the dances begin, and the hymns of thanks rise without understandable words in glorification of the spirits that granted the catch. These are the moments when the fears of survival fade to be overshadowed by a sense of safety and belonging. Life was not limited to hunting and celebration, but was relentless work, where every individual plays their part in the survival machine. Men handle hunting, although their luck may fail many times, so the greater burden of providing daily sustenance falls on the women. They would go out in the morning with plant baskets and skins to collect provisions. They possess precise cumulative experience passed down from grandmothers about the places where starchy tubers grow, which defeat hunger, seasonal fruits like berries, and seeds that are ground to make primitive dough, not to mention medicinal herbs for healing. Besides gathering, they also handle tanning hides and sewing clothes using fine bone needles. Any defect in sewing could let in deadly frost. As for the children, once they reach the age of 6, they are integrated into vital tasks such as collecting firewood and water and cleaning hides, and most importantly, they learn by imitation. The boys follow the hunters to learn to read tracks and aim spears, and the girls stay with the mothers to master the sciences of plants, sewing, and herbal medicine. At the top of the pyramid sit the elderly. Those who have reached 50, they are the archive of the clan. They saved weather seasons and migration paths, and took on the task at night of recounting legends and memories of past victories to plant faith, values, and social cohesion in the souls of the youth. Not every cave was suitable for residence. The strict conditions require it to be dry to avoid lung diseases, its proximity to a flowing water source, and its height to reveal the grazing surroundings, with the necessity of having a single entrance to make it easy to guard. Organizing the cave was intuitive and practical. In the front, the main fire is centered as an axis for activity, cooking and tool making, while the warm depths are allocated for sleep, covered with the softest furs. It is worth noting that some lived on the plains, where they built shelters engineered with skill from the huge mammoth bones and tusks as structures on which sturdy hides are pulled to withstand wind and snow. Humans at that time sensed the existence of hidden forces that run the universe. The spirits of the prey are respected and approached by dancing and drawing their charms on the walls to bring success in hunting, and the spirits of the ancestors are present to guard them. Funeral rites for the dead were performed with extreme care, where they are placed in a grave in the fetal position, surrounded by their most valuable tools and some provisions to help them on their journey to the other world, and red powder. Iron oxide is scattered on them as a symbolism of blood and life. In times of trouble, they would resort to the shaman, the spiritual seer, who uses his expertise in herbs and anesthetic states to ward off evil spirits and bring the healing of the clan. Were it not for the invention of language, humans would not have separated from the animal kingdom. Advanced language enabled them to pass on complex knowledge, how to carve a rock or track a species, to future generations with precision, just as it paved the way for a shared belief in things that are not seen like myths and tribal bonds, such as their belonging to the wolf clan. This shared conscience is what welded the members of the group and made them give their lives in defense of their entity. With the dissipation of the last ray of sunlight, everyone retreats into the sanctuary of the cave. The children fall asleep, and the adults whisper before surrendering to sleep. The guards take turns with their torches to pierce the wall of darkness, ready with their spears to repel any beast that approaches stealthily. During their slumber, dreams appear to them that fill their conscience with scenes of the gods and hunting, and the next morning the shaman takes on the task of decoding them. Seeing a huge animal is a herald of spoils, and dreaming of a flood is a warning of a sweeping torrent. Those were their days, a mixture of austerity and fierceness, but overflowing with belonging, solidarity, and bravery at the points of contact with death. It is a life that created opportunities for joy, creativity, and deepening the connection with the universe. And with that, the curtain falls on a march that spanned millions of years, which started from striking one rock with another until the human ascended the throne of creativity, coloring the walls of caves. This epic is not just a past, but living lessons. Innovation is the lifeline. Humans did not win with their muscles, but with their minds, for when trouble stood in their way, they applied their thinking until they reached their goal. Your intelligence is the sharpest weapon in the struggle. Strength through cooperation. The incredible achievement that brought down the mighty mammoth was the result of joint efforts, so build your team and give them trust. Knowledge is the legacy of generations. What is not inherited by indoctrination and imitation perishes with the death of its owner. Take the initiative to pass your experience to those behind you. Confronting the unknown with boldness. Their migration from Africa was a leap into the mouth of the unknown that achieved their dominance. Do not fear changes, for they may bring you glory. Food for the spirit like food for the body. Amidst the struggle for survival, they carved statues and played melodies. The human is an entity that seeks meaning and beauty even in the most extreme circumstances. This biography reminds us of a fundamental thing we have lost. Our ancestors lived with material simplicity, but with great spiritual depth. They were fused with their mother nature and with each other. Perhaps we need to draw inspiration from them on how to fill our hearts instead of stuffing our pockets. Thank you for watching Doty Drama Channel. I hope you liked the story. Join our big family now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and enjoy this magical world.